Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
It's the session number 3 of the Carnivore Evolution podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you on your health and fitness journey. Today, we have a special guest, Tony, where he will talk about his experience using an animal-based diet. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Tony, how are you, sir?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. I just want to say, it's really cool to be able to sit down and talk all things meat. It's great. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
And where are you from?
I'm from Vancouver, Canada, but specifically White Rock, BC. Yeah, the rainy coast.
Nice. Have you ever been to Europe?
I have. I actually lived in the UK for a few years, and I've been to Ireland.
Really? What part?
Dublin and then Galway, and then we kind of traveled right across the country.
Was it just recently, or was it years ago?
No, this is quite a few years ago, about 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Jeez. Right. Yeah. Okay, so no, I just wanted to bring you on because I've been following you now for a while, and I just wanted to ask you what brought you into this carnivore space.
Okay, well, I guess we have some time. So this is started about 5 years ago. I was at a point where I couldn't run upstairs. I was like my shoulders, a chronic pain. Like I was at the point, like just pushing, early 40s and going, okay, this is it. Like this is the turning point. What happens now? You just get old. And I was like, well, okay, well, let's start exercising. And it was difficult. I mean, from going, being in pain, trying to work out, and it wasn't doing anything. If anything, it was making me worse. And so I was looking at some guys that I knew, and a couple friends that were relatively in shape, quite a few years younger, but they were all doing this keto thing. And I was like, well, what's that? And then when I kind of got the basics of it, I was like, well, let's give it a try, because nothing, what do I have to lose? So I started a ketogenic, low carb diets, and it was very bad. Now that I know what it was, like mayonnaise and seed oils and stuff. But what I found was I started feeling better. And then what happened was I was at the point where my teeth in my life have been, progressively worse into my adulthood. And I was like, okay, it's going to cost me about 25-30 grand to get my teeth fixed. And it started with my wisdom teeth. So I went to the dentist. He had to pull my wisdom teeth at 40 plus years old. All my life, I've seen horror stories of this. I got them pulled and I was back at work in like 4 hours. And I was like, what the hell is going on with my pain? Like, how is this possible? And that kind of sparked me into it. And I had a conversation with a guy at the gym, and he's like, oh, you're on keto. All you got to do is eat beef and eggs. And I remember this is the statement that changed my life. And now I've never felt so stupid. He's like, all you have to do is eat ground beef and eggs and you'll be fine. And I was like, there is no way I am not eating vegetables. There's not a chance that's happening. Well, 2 or 3 years later, a couple of years later, into this keto space, started seeing all this stuff. And I found commonalities with people saying like how red meat was so good for you. I've always loved steak. And then, I started digging into these people that were talking about this stuff. And it was always these outliers that what sort of brought me to it was these people are compelled to say something against whatever you want to call it, the mainstream. For what reason? Their mothers, they're engineers, they're different doctors, and they're all getting blacklisted and blackballed. And I was like, why would people jeopardize their career, their reputation, and their livelihood to speak out with something if there wasn't something there? And sure enough, I found Michaela Peterson, Sean Baker, and I'd already been low carb. And I started nutrition school, and I was like, I had a long talk with the dean, and I was keto. So it's sort of, she's like, well, just, kind of figure it out. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. I was going to go vegan. And when I was like, okay, well, we've been doing such good work, let's put it all on the table. And as soon as I started looking at essential nutrients, absorption, bioavailability, I was like, this does not make a lick of sense. I went carnivore. And I was like, for 30 days, I'm going to go carnivore. And that was three and a half plus years ago. So Here I am, and I haven't looked back.
Mm. And it's amazing because every time I talk to somebody, it's always pretty similar. The story is always similar. They've always done the low carb. They started on keto. They went
Yeah.
vegetarian, but there was something always in the background. They just didn't feel right.
Yeah. And it's funny because like what that's totally true. And if like, I really do appreciate all the like when I started this, it was pretty, I was looked at like I was nuts, like from most of my friends and family, like, you're crazy. This can't be good. And I'm talking like within 30 days, I like something clicked and I was like, I started shredding body fat. Like it was ridiculous. And I started realizing that it's just food. This is naturally gravitating to what your body needs and eliminating the stuff it doesn't. And you can argue vegetables. I like, to be honest with you, I just don't trust their vegetables. I don't eat the supermarket stuff. But what it comes down to, when you focus on the foundations, everything starts to make sense. So essential nutrients, and that's what essentially a carnivore diet is. And it's quite fascinating.
And see, a lot of people can't push past when you say that it's just basically eating meat, whereas people are just brainwashed. They think that, oh no, I need to have the rainbow on my plate.
Yeah.
I need to have so many different foods on my plate. I can't just sit down and have a steak. I can't just sit down and have beef. I must be allowed to have carbohydrates. I must be allowed to have some veggies. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, it's, and like when why we connected, it's so simple. Like the hardest thing to do. And I mean, now in my, getting into my business, is to teach people how to think for themselves. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once, you go into different avenues, everything leads, profit driven agendas, bought and paid for science, all of it doesn't make sense. And it's just, everybody that says you can't do it isn't doing it. And they're obviously not watching maybe millions of people now actually do it. And I'm still waiting for it to not be sustainable. Like what is show me, like, I think we've joked about it too. Show me a study. It's like, well, you know what? Where is our health led? Where's the modern food system, medical system, pharmaceutical systems led us? Lifestyle medications, and you're broken. Well,
it's such a pity because a lot of people would rather take medication instead of just eating a proper diet.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I talk to people all the time at my clinic, and it's like their interpretation or their idea of what healthy is it's like one part personal attachment to your life, and the other part what they've been told, and they just can't let it go. They're like, oatmeal's good for you. And my question is it? And if you're relying on oatmeal for what? Because, you can argue energy, you can argue maybe protein, but it's, we know it's bullshit. All these things, phytic acid is a big deal. And once you break it down to why are you eating this, and you're not afraid of the answer.
And see, when it comes to our energy, it's always carbohydrates. But that's just like saying to somebody who wants to light a fire, are you going to light a fire with a box of matches, or are you going to light your fire with like a lighter? There are other energy sources, and your other energy source is fats. And unless you actually go down that route and try it for at least a couple of months, you will never understand. You actually have more energy. You actually feel even better being in ketosis.
For sure. And I mean, I was like paying for school. I was working a very physical job. I was working for a moving company, my friend's moving company. And I was like, working. So I was studying full time. I was working pretty much full time, long, crazy hours, working with kids. And I was running circles around them. And they're like, they got to stop every couple hours to eat their we have this like fast food, Tim Hortons stuff, sandwiches, garbage all the time. And I'm not even eating. Like I could do a 14-hour day with no food. And it was like, they're all looking at me like I'm some kind of freak. And I'm looking at them like I'm actually the human here,
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how and you know, we'll get into this, like where I think you and I get along really well is they tell us to eat carbohydrates. They say that you need sugar.
Yeah.
Well, that's half true. And we know your body needs glucose. We know the body can make its own glucose as much as it needs.
Yeah.
Why is 40% of our diet this stuff that we don't need? And the rest of our diet is the shit we do need, but they tell us to eat less of it.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing when it comes to our health, we've been told we need to rely on a macronutrient that is not even essential.
It's when, like, I actually had a talk with a lady yesterday that she came in, brought her son in we were treated. Well, like I treat a lot of addiction and stuff, but that's another story. But she was, diabetic, blood pressure meds, high cholesterol, statins. And we were talking about it. And she was like, what do you mean you reversed I was pre-diabetic. I'm not anymore. And she's like, how did you do that? And I was like this, and this is I'm going to swear here, people, so I'm sorry, but this is what the conversation from your doctor should be if you are in this range.
Yeah.
Stop eating fucking sugar. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, this is why I love having these conversations with the likes of you. Because when I hear people like you that are actually doing it, and you're coming back to me and saying, you know what? I used to be a type 2 diabetic. I'm no longer a type 2 diabetic. I'll speak to somebody else that'll say, listen, I used to have PCOS, or I struggled with mental health all my life. And they're coming back and saying, like, listen, everything's reversed. Feel great. I still fast. I don't rely on medication anymore. I'm always saying to people, what other research do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Show me a study, right?
Like, I don't care. I don't care what study you show me. Like, this guy here is telling me that he feels amazing. He's reversed all his conditions. Like, who am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to you with a study, or am I going to listen to this guy right here?
Yeah. And the other thing too is, like, all these doctors, these clinicians that are doing this with diet and lifestyle are all getting ridiculed by their industry. Like, I mean, I don't know if you know about Gary Fettke. Like, this is the stuff that just made me go, what the? And this is true. Like, this happened. He got brought to court, stripped of his medical license because he was curing diabetes inappropriately.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Sure. I remember, what was it? When did we go through COVID? It was 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember 3 years ago, I know a medical doctor over here came on the radio, and they were talking about, okay, another way we had to sit indoors. We weren't allowed outdoors. And he was actually questioning the top people. He was actually questioning top people in the health department. And he was like, okay, why are we sitting indoors and we're allowed to eat junk food and we're allowed to drink alcohol and we're not allowed to sit outside in the fresh air? But you want me to sit inside and get sick? It was unbelievable. That guy lost his job. He lost his job. He had to emigrate to Australia because he lost his job here.
That's kind of, sorry, just cut out a little bit there, but
no, I was just saying.
You. And
yeah, it was just insane.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, one of the guys, like one of the fine Irish fellows that, man, he probably kept my head in COVID more than anybody else. Ivor Cummins. Like, man, if the world would just listen to that guy, you don't have to do anything. Just hear what he has to say. And this is an engineer that is in the industry telling you, listen. And during the pandemic, like, he was one of the guys that I leaned on for, okay, am I going crazy here? Because I felt the same way. I'm like, how? Because that was just when I started. Sorry, I got a garbage truck outside. I was just starting to get in my groove, and all these things started resolving. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like I was injecting critical thinking into every single situation, and all these people were flying out off the handle. And then, these things came in, and that's a whole other story. But I was like, what in God's name is going on? Like, people are losing their minds. and, you know, whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
fear, mass psychosis, I think, which all, you know, have a lot of weight to it. But it was nuts. I'm like, you want to be sitting indoors? Like, that was just horrible. It was the damage that did on so many levels was ridiculous.
And when you mentioned to me at the very, very beginning about the pain you were going through, like what sort of pain were you going through?
Well, it was that undiagnosable pain that was just, oh, you're getting old. So we're talking, and I could feel my rotator cuff was wearing down, no mobility, and it was just always there. So I'm sure I was probably a doctor visit away from fibromyalgia, because that's a bullshit excuse, you know, muscle aches, joint pain, you know, and it was it. And when I felt the difference, that was it. It all started clicking.
Mm. And that was just basically when you just removed the carbohydrates, just instantly, it was just gone.
As soon as I stopped, well, no, now it's what is, you know, bring the inflammation down. But as soon as I stopped eating grains, as soon as I stopped eating bread, as soon as I stopped eating, the all the bullshit, right? And I mean, I at first, even with keto, I was that, you know, and I love it when people are doing all these like little tricks and keto treats and stuff. And realistically, now I don't have time for that. I just eat butter and I just eat steak. Like, it's pretty simple. But as soon as I cut out all those unnecessary, ridiculous foods, my pain went away, and it was almost instantly, which is wild.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point there, because I think that's where people are getting misled. When they look at keto, they see all these products, they see all these bars, they see all this stuff in the shop, and they're like, okay, if I want to go keto, I just need to buy this stuff. Yeah. But they realize that this stuff is just basically shit, basically.
Well, when I started keto, there was none of this shit. There was like, you know, maybe some keto approved stuff, MCT oil, and, you know, you made your own keto treats.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got pretty creative with cream cheese, but I mean, but as that, it was funny, because if you just, you know, just take yourself out of this equation and just be an observer for like how this all transpired, you watched everybody slag and slander the keto diet, saying how bad it is for you. But yet all these manufacturers, these companies came out with all these keto treats, things, keto. It's the same thing. And now all of a sudden we're going to back off on keto diet so bad because they got you. And it's processed food. It doesn't matter which way it is, you know?
Yeah. And that's pretty much all it is. It's just like these foods are, when you look at the label, there's nearly 20 fucking ingredients in these foods, and they're just littered with all different types of sugar. And I think people need to realize, I only found out about this about 2 years ago. I always thought in my head there's only two sugars, like a sweetener and just a normal sugar. Yeah. But now I've realized there's over 6 names of different sugars.
Yeah. It's they hide it, right? Like they can do whatever they want. And just, you know, I've gone down certain rabbit holes, and like I'm the kind of guy that likes to know why. And I'm not now, especially when I've got my little flags pop off, and all this bullshit is designed to trick you. If you have to read ingredients, it's not good for you. Like, really. 100%. I mean, 100%. and it's all these tricks they do to, if your serving size is not adequate, they don't have to declare certain things like trans fats and the amount of sugar and the amount of this. If they just, and that's why, you know, a serving of Oreos is 2 cookies. Bullshit. Yeah. Try that. Good luck.
Yeah. And see, I get an awful lot of hate, and I'm sure you do on your social media, from vegan people. A lot of hate. A lot of people come on to me. They're always vegans and saying, like, listen, this is not we shouldn't be eating this way. Like, back in a few centuries ago, we were brought up eating fucking fruit and vegetables, and you're like, hang on a second. If you look at the back of the label, vegan food, you've got nearly 20 ingredients that I've never even heard of. And then if I go into the supermarket and just buy some beef and look at the label and it just says one ingredient, I mean, are you really that stupid to tell me that meat is the problem?
It's ridiculous, man. And if somebody's curious about their health and they want to make some changes and they decide to go vegan, for instance, okay, I've helped vegans be better vegans, and actually, funny enough, teach them to think like carnivores because they have religion or they have some kind of thing that, sure. But when you start making stuff with fake stuff to replace the stuff that you tell me that is bad for me, it does not make a lick of sense. If you don't want to eat cheese, fine, but don't fucking tell me vegan cheese is better. Don't tell me these vegan sausages are better. Don't tell Bill Gates. Don't tell me lab-grown meat is better. Like it's just.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. So tell me this much: what does a typical day look like eating wise?
Well, I'm one of those guys that I'll fight tooth and nail for my coffee. There's arguments from both sides. For me, in my life, it's not a deal breaker. I've given it up because I've tested it out to see if I was like withdrawing from caffeine. And to be honest with you, I didn't feel anything. I just like it. So, but I use it for a vessel for butter. So I do that. I wake up, typically do a meditation, do a yoga practice, and then I go my coffee and I put a couple tablespoons of butter in there, maybe some MCT oil once in a while. And then I'm good for, until my day tells me I'm good to eat. So whether I'm working, I've got a bunch of stuff to do. I don't eat till it's time. And it's basically, I usually eat once a day. And I'm not saying everybody can do that. I can eat enough food, which I'm comfortable with. And it's kind of like I've just naturally gravitated to once a day because it's convenient. So I get home, from work, whether it's 3 o'clock or whether it's 9 o'clock. Generally, if it's after dinner time and I've been busy, I'll just fast. I don't need to eat, but that's what I do. Generally, I don't let my life dictate my meal times. I just eat when I do eat, I eat till I'm comfortably full. It's not really full. It's just done. Like I usually have an off button. I make more beef than I can eat. And then I just get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm done. So it's, I like to think that it's kind of just my way. And that's pretty much it. And that happens almost every day. Sometimes, I'll have maybe 2 meals a day, but usually what ends up happening is I'll start my first meal. I'll eat so much I don't need to eat again. So it just ends up being one.
And I'm sure all that saturated fat is going to kill you.
Well, I'm waiting. Right. And that brings us to a good point. Like, it's so crazy how, all this indoctrination about cholesterol, and it doesn't die. It's every day I have conversations with people. And it's like, if you are so concerned about your cholesterol and you hear and you're scared and you're worried and you hear one person that is making sense, not doing what you're doing, why wouldn't you learn about it? And that's all I'll tell people is there is so many different opinions out there about this stuff. And I'm not saying cholesterol, their cholesterol, their thing is good or bad. We need cholesterol. That's a fact. Cholesterol is cholesterol. It's not LDL. It's not HDL. Yeah. But saturated fat comes with essential nutrients. So if you're bringing fat soluble vitamins to the table, essential fatty acids to the table, and it's structurally sound and it's not volatile or prone to oxidation, how is that worse than this seed oil bullshit that goes rancid, that's volatile?
Yep.
And so cholesterol is just a distraction because it's just if eating saturated fat raises your cholesterol, which causes heart disease, isn't true, all of it falls apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, there's no evidence whatsoever. There really isn't. I mean, when it came to saturated fat, I remember years ago, studying this stuff, and they were always telling me, like, listen, stay away from saturated fats, be careful of your cholesterol. But nobody ever told me about inflammation. Nobody could tell me the reason why I was walking around bloated. I wasn't feeling good. I would get injured regularly.
Yeah.
I'd have joint mental health issues. Nobody could tell me that. And it was only until I came across this a couple of years ago and I said, right, okay, these people are eating a lot of saturated fat. They look absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I said, I'm going to give this a go. I'm just going to give it a go for at least a week. I couldn't believe in 1 week, I felt amazing. I felt absolutely incredible. And that's when I realized that this whole lifestyle is not a diet.
No.
Not a diet. This is the way we're meant to be eating.
And that's, you know what, that's actually, well, yeah. I mean, when I'm helping people, or like I have clients that it's actually just teaching them how to think. Like that's it. It's not a diet. It's your diet. It's a human diet. It's what we're supposed to eat. And if it makes you feel good, how can it be wrong? And I mean, I look at my example, like I was broken. I feel like a human again, and they're telling me that I'm going to die faster. How is it? It doesn't make sense.
See, when they came out years ago, they never actually dug into the evidence of why. Okay, you were eating red meat, but what else were you eating it with?
Exactly. And and I mean, all you have to do is like once you spend a couple hours digging into the history, and that's another thing that has blown me away. Once you realize all these things, you can just, and everybody says follow the money, but no one ever does. But really, follow the money historically, and it makes perfect sense. Why would they want you healthy? Why would they want you to eat the most nutritiously dense foods? Well, obviously, money, profit, drugs, and you get part of that cycle, and it doesn't make sense. All these bought and paid for people, and all you have to do is, and this is kind of a little bit outside the box, but it's a perfect trick. Go plant-based, because they know you're going to cheat. And Oreos, Doritos, Coca-Cola is vegan. So they get you. They know this. So what we'll do is we'll pay for a bunch of doctors to preach this garbage, knowing full well that you're gonna try things. Ooh, look, Kentucky Fried Chicken just came out with fake chicken nuggets. Well, it's like, okay. And that's the thing. It's unbelievable when you actually just look into why. And
And when you mentioned that it's so much easier to fast on this way of eating, that's what it's all about. Because, like you mentioned, when people go on these vegan diets, you can clearly see they have to eat every couple of hours.
Yeah,
they're getting these cravings, they're sugar cravings, and they're saying, okay, a little bit of chocolate there is okay, a little bit of processed food is there. That should never be the case. Like you said, if you're eating the right diet and you're eating to fuel your body, you don't need to eat again. And that's where I've noticed. When I used to eat like 8 meals a day, I used to feel hungry. I only eat 3 a day. I cannot believe I'm only eating 3 meals a day when I used to eat like a day. I used to eat 8 meals a day non-stop.
Yeah.
Non-stop. Well, I would eat like a lot of food. I would still, at the end of the day, I would still be hungry.
Yeah. And you know, this is this.
And nobody told me why. And not one person could tell me the reason why.
Yeah, you know, all my life, you know, it's like you need 6 protein shakes. You need, you know, eat little and often. You got to stimulate your metabolism. You got to keep it burning. And you know, I was there. I mean, I was in times of my life I would have to train to get a goal or to accomplish something. And as soon as I was done, it all fell apart. Like I gained weight back. I got weak. I got all this shit. Now I eat more or less often. I'm in the lowest body fat percentage of my life at 50 years old. I don't go to the gym, man. I honestly, I do once in a while when I feel like lifting some heavy shit, but I'm more about mobility. And I just, you know, I do my yoga, I go for walks and I stay active. but all my physical, I have abs at 50 years old without trying. And that's your point, is nobody explained really why. It was just what you did. And all of a sudden, all this fasting, it's like, I appreciate those people out there that are like 16, 8 and 18, whatever. It's eating or not eating. That's it. And, if you can just give your body the time to get back into its own way before you fuel it again, you're going to find results. And, if you want to get really into it, play around with it. You know what I mean? Like, condense your eating window, fast a couple days. And I always get people, when I take on clients, I tell them, I'm like, fast, first day, fast. You tell me when you get hungry. And most of the time it's within 2 hours. By the time by 6 months later, when we're done, they can fast for a week. And it's just, it just is what it is, right?
And see, a lot of people will think that, there's no way you got abs unless calorie deficit. And this calorie bullshit. I just saw your video today, man. Let's go into it. I love, and this is what I love Bart K for. Like, I don't know, it's just calories are fucking heat. Okay. Yeah.
You take shit, you blow it up, and that's how much heat is coming off it. That's your calories. Now, if you are an Olympic athlete and you need a metric to track, because you're going into a fine-tooth comb and you need to know details of performance, okay, maybe that's valid to measure something. But for the average normal person, man, how the fuck is 1 gram of protein 4 calories and 1 gram of sugar 4 calories when they do completely different things in your metabolic closed system? What the fuck?
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I found out about this a couple of years ago through Barca. And it took me a long time. It took me about a month to understand it completely. But when he kept on speaking about it, this guy is actually making a lot more sense. He's making a lot, because I used to argue with and say, listen, no, it's all about calories. I was on a few podcasts with him, and the more he kept on speaking about it, I was like, this guy is actually showing me, and he's actually telling me that no, this is the way it's. And the more I kept on listening to him, and the more I kept on doing it myself, and then I just didn't track anything for nearly 6 months. I didn't track anything, and I was like, hang on a second, I'm still losing weight. I'm still walking around with abs. Like, this is insane. And you know what the worst thing was? When I was eating 8 meals a day, I would have to get down to around 1,300 calories. In my ab. 1,300. I can guarantee you right now, I'm probably on around over 4,000 calories a day on average, and I'm still walking.
No doubt. I'll tell you what. I have a book. A friend of mine. This is the USDA Farmers the Department of Agriculture USDA yearbook of 1894.
Wow.
And there's a diet part of it that is saying people would be eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day. There was no obesity. There was no heart disease. And when they're telling you what to eat, it's unbelievable. Fat, protein. They're saying, okay. And it just goes to show you, this is back then, they were using grains as fallback foods. If you needed more energy, you would consume more grains. But it was not what was done. It was meat, fish, eggs, fat. And Absolutely. It's unbelievable. And this is women. Women, 3,500 calories. Where was the obesity?
It's insane, isn't it? It's absolutely. And then when you look around now, like, nobody eats, nobody a fat diet, nobody. And then you look at the papers. Every week it's on the news. Obesity is going, diabetes is going up. And you're looking at it and you're like, hang on a second. Somebody needs to ask the question, why are these numbers going up? And everybody's on a low fat diet.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up.
And I remember when I was a kid, I remember this because I don't know, for some reason, probably now it's coming back into my awareness. But I remember when my family went to corn oil, vegetable oil, Mazola, all that shit, skim milk. Everybody, like in the early 80s, was like, it went from lard and fryer fat to vegetable oils. And it was like margarine, all this shit. And thinking back to that, we've gotten worse. So, if you just have to look at that, like if everything's a problem and we're just de-evolving at an exponential rate, getting sicker because of, well, why? And then when people switch back to that way of eating, and I tell people, just eat like your great grandparents.
Yeah. And have you noticed as well in the last 50 years, when you look at, say, like cereal, for example, like 50 years ago, you would have found 7 ingredients on it. Now you've got at least 4.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of these little TikToks with these cereal boys, and they're like 20 years old telling me that whatever cereal is really good for you. And it's like, I ate cereal almost every day for my life for, 35 years. Fuck off. Right.
Yeah.
And now you just have, my mom thought she was getting, and my mom's, bless her heart, she, all I wanted to eat was beef and potatoes, steak and potatoes. That was it. I got told to eat vegetables. Eventually in my adult life, I started liking them, but I realized it was the stuff I was doing to the vegetables that I liked. Seasoning them in butter and all the shit that you put on the vegetables is what makes them tasty. But what happened was my mom was good about the cereal. Well, arguably good about the cereals I ate. I never got the Fruit Loops and the bullshit. I had, Raisin Bran and Life and just arguably good cereal. And now looking back at that, it was just fueling a potential fire later on in my life. And I mean, that's another thing with history. Like just for anybody listening to this that just wants to question what we're saying, start learning about John Harvey Kellogg. Just learn about it. The history of how cereal got indoctrinated into our lifestyle. It's mind-blowing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's actually quite scary because I've actually read that report and I've actually watched it as well. It's absolutely scary. It's actually scary. It really is.
And I mean, and I don't want to go too far into any kind of religious rabbit holes, but it's just history, man. And if you look at what the Seventh-day Adventists stand for, and who cares? It's not what it is, but they are plant-based driven for whatever reason. And they are a very big, powerful influence in our food guidelines. And if you don't think that's true, just start learning about it because it's quite mind-blowing.
Yeah, because I think that's the big thing that I hope people get out of this is that, like, nobody's saying that no particular diet works. But what I'm always going to preach is that unless you actually try this, just try it for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You're never going to understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, and my mission is to encourage people that you can feel great every day. And somebody asked me one time, and I think it was on a YouTube comment or something. They're like, well, how do you describe that? And I was like, that's a good question. And then somebody helped me out and they're like, you know what it feels like when I was a kid and I was on summer holidays and I couldn't wait to go build a tree fort and run around with my friends. And I'm like, that's exactly it. And I'm doing that now in my late 40s. Every morning, man, I'm excited to be alive. And that's the difference for sure.
That's what I was going to say. The difference for me was I used to struggle to get up out of bed in the morning, like struggle. Yeah. I would struggle to get to the gym because I'd have to have a meal before I go to the gym. And then when I went to the gym, I'd still be bloated. My energy I'd be literally in the door and I'd be like, you know what? I need a nap. At all. People used to look at me and say, no, you're weird. There's something wrong with you. Like, there's just something wrong with you. But I was always walking around. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't feel good. I'm telling you, I don't feel good. And I was just completely. I was one of those people that was just like, I was struggling. I was really struggling in life. And ever since I changed my ways and I went, okay, I'm going to go full into this.
Yeah.
My life is, I feel like you. I feel like I'm 20, 30 years younger.
Yeah. And,
My only regret is I didn't do this a long time ago.
yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, man, if you like, that's a whole other animal that's opened up with me, like my spiritual side and my whole, like, just thinking, right? And consciousness, awareness. And I think this probably was on purpose because I do the same thing. I'm like, fuck, if I've just learned about this or just, listen to my intuition back when I just was a kid and I wanted to eat meat because that's all I wanted to eat was steak. And
see, the problem was we were all chasing the wrong thing. We were all chasing to have the six pack. We were all chasing that to look amazing. But by doing that, we were actually risking our health.
Absolutely. And and this is the other side of this stuff is and people, like, I try and get this through them, is that they know human beings are resilient. They know you're gonna survive. They know that as your body breaks down because of this indoctrination of their ways, you're just plugged into a system and they don't want you to break out of it. And, my grandmother lived till she was 101. Now, she has some crazy genetics. All her sisters live to 105. I'm telling you, like, they were these Italian ladies. But my grandmother at 101 years old was on 12 medications.
Wow.
And I looked at that, and this was just when, like, she passed away a couple of years ago. And I was looking at these medications, and this was brought to my, they were all treating side effects of the other medications. And it was just a circle of shit. And had my grandmother not had amazing, and genetics, but why? I was like, these medications are all doing nothing. And, her diet was atrocious. And I was like, if she could have just lived the way she wanted to, I bet you she would have lived to 120, man. Like, her traditional old world Italian diet, like, it was wild to watch. And she was sharp until she passed away. But that's it. She's been on medications, and all these people, like, they know this. Like, so her body was so resilient, so able to put up with this shit, but yet they convinced her that she needed these medications to live. And I honestly don't believe that.
Yeah. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame that when people do get older, like yourself and myself, we think that, okay, that's it, Nick. We're going to be on medication. It's normal. It's just the way it is. When we get old, we're meant to be on medication. We're meant to be in hospital. You're meant to go through all this pain. And it's so sad that a lot of people that are going through this actually take this advice.
Yeah. And, like, when I first started, I don't know if you know this, but, like, my nutrition school, like, I didn't want the degree. I didn't want any of their bullshit because I didn't want to be the same crap. I mean, I can write a diet plan out for anybody. I can tell you to eat supplements all day long. The whole point is and then when I found out that I could be held liable for not following scope of practice and standard, like, I was like, this is crazy. I just spent all this money. And to be honest with you, I learned a hell of a lot because everybody that I helped with their diet, following their rules, got worse. Every single one of them. So I was like, I don't want this. And then I had a big, like, awakening. I was like, okay, what are we going to do? I wanted everybody that I see, I was like, holy shit, I want to hug you and scream. Like, you don't need to do this. I look at people's shopping carts in the grocery stores and I'm just like, like, if you just knew. But the problem is everybody, you have to come into this in your own time. And, listening to, like, I hope these conversations, like, that we're having, just inspire people to take their own action and try something. And if you think after decades of processed food and garbage, eating meat for 30 days you're going to drop dead of a heart attack, like, really think about it. 30 days, and that's the thing, man. It's unbelievable how many people just are medicated, sick, poly medicated, like 5 or more medications by the time you're 50 years old is common. That's crazy.
Yeah. And honestly, this is the reason why I do these videos. Because like you, I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for my ego. I'm doing this to educate. Because I know, I mean, this is how I learned about this. I learned about this from people in your country, in Canada and America. Like in my country, if you mention carnivore or keto to anybody in this country, they'll think you're a weirdo. You're absolute. The amount of comments that I get every day, people telling me that, listen, you're kill people, you're crazy, like you need to stop. We need to get the police after you.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, wow, like this is the reason why I need this. I need to keep doing this. This is the reason that, right, how can I do more? How can I actually do more? And that's dead right. I need to set up a podcast. I need to get people on that are living this lifestyle. And I want to hear from these people face to face of their experience. And that's what I'm going to. I have literally about 20 people ready to go the next month that I'm going to
nice. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you.
And as I said, it's not from my ego. I want to hear these success stories because this is the reason why I got into this. I got into this because of people like you. When I hear your story, when I hear your success story, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And and that's where I've sort of gravitated to is when I started this, it was a leap of faith. And as I built up more of a proof system and just I test it. I have my test. I test it and I go, what makes sense to me? Look at all the sides, look at all the details, look at everything. And I got into this like science, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, physiology, and it's all of it, everything. Once you start dissecting things and not putting it all together, you're going to get lost because you can prove anything. But what I started doing was realizing this as well is it's in the stories, the people that are normal, that are finding hope, life, health. That's power. And it really, like, to be honest, I have to hold back to a lot of people that damn you to tell somebody that couldn't get out of bed. That was so sick they were going to die, that have reclaimed their health, able to walk, getting their life back, that they're wrong. That drives me crazy.
I think I only did that yesterday. I think I did a video yesterday, or I did a video on Wednesday about the steak and butter girl. Do you know her?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I put up a video of her because someone was calling her out and saying, "Listen,
I watched it.
What they were saying, this was a dietitian. She was actually showing her a plate of food that she eats." And I've actually spoken to her. A few times, and she has reversed her skin condition.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She used to struggle with life, and I'm like, how dare you, as a dietitian, tell this woman that she reversed all her conditions, and you're basically telling her she's a liar.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
seriously.
it's scary because when I started my YouTube channel, it was about 2 years ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna document what's going on. I've been sort of the carnivore animal base for a little bit over a year. I started January 1st, 2022, I think, and I got monetized. I got like 1,000 people probably within the first 8-9 months. And I was just trying to show another side, another opinion, nothing stupid. AI bull produced, just talks, just straight up talks. And I got to about 1,500 subscribers, and then everything stopped. Like that's kind of why I'm on TikTok now, because YouTube's dead. Like I don't know what it is, whether it's the algorithm, whatever I'm preaching isn't being responded, but I'm not getting to any new people. And I don't know if it's the system or what, but Steak and Butter Gal, Bella, was she was one of the people that I saw was a normal person doing these things. And this is where I feel that, we're always listening to the powers that be about this bullshit. And I mean, you know, you want to go to town, I will take Harvard to town any day. You know, we all know where that goes. But it's the real people. And your videos, man, like I got this is why, like, when I first saw it, you're not afraid to call it out. And you know what? I think I made the mistake earlier on because I was trying to find a way to relate to people nicely. And I was trying to say, yeah, okay, well, but you know what? It was actually my uncle that said to me too. He's like, Tony, you got to hit it home. Just tell people people the fucking truth. And you know what? Here's what I this is kind of like, I always think about these things, like how I'm going to argue these ridiculous dietitians and nutritionists. If you recommend a diet with essential nutrients, the nutrients that we must have to live, how is that wrong?
Yeah.
Simple. Because I'm not talking about what is bringing you the nutrients. I'm talking about if you're getting the essential nutrients, how is that wrong?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you know what the thing is, I will respect every dietitian. I'll respect every coach, PT, whoever you are, a doctor. But if you're going to have a conversation with me, have a conversation with me face to face. I do not want to have a conversation with you through text. I don't want to see your research. I want to speak to you face to face.
Yeah.
And that's all I ask. So when people call me out, I'm like, listen, I'm not one of these people that likes to type behind a computer or type behind a phone. I would rather speak to you face to face and let the audience hear both sides. I will never ever say that if you said to me, like, listen, I do vegan, I'll respect that. But I expect you to respect me also.
Yeah. Well, you know, and
that's all I want. I want people here to hear both sides of the story so they can make up their own.
Exactly. And you know, when you're like, and I hear this all the time, you know, like they just regurgitate the same stuff, but yet you're seeing people radically change and profoundly impact their lives. And
see, that's what really annoys me, because on my TikTok, I'm pretty much saying the same thing probably every 3 or 4 days. I'm always talking about calories. I'm always talking about cholesterol. I'm always talking about the same thing. But it's just because I see a different video of someone explaining it. And I feel like if I don't keep on repeating this process, then people are just going to fall for that. And that's why I feel like I have to keep on top of this. I have to explain to people, no, hang on a second.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. You need to listen to what I'm saying as well, and then make up your own minds.
Yeah. And you know what? Like with your videos too, like I love your aspect of hormones. Like I help ladies, and we're not going to get into the menopause stuff because it's whatever, but hormones, when you break down to what hormones are, they're your signals. That's your communication with your body. It all comes down to hormones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, whether it's ghrelin, leptin, insulin, there's a function. And if it's not working properly, okay, why? What's going on? And you reverse engineer it. And, you know, if you go to the doctor and you're estrogen dominant, they prescribe a certain insert hormone replacement here. If you're low testosterone, well, I'm not saying there's not a place for maybe some TRT, but why is that happening? Firstly, like, you know, and if you just think cholesterol, fat, steroids, sex hormones, just that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It opens up your mind to, holy shit, I might have a problem with actually how it's starting. And hormones are everything, man. And I love your aspect of that. It is all about hormones.
It is because I would say about 95% of the women that come to me are struggling with that issue. They're either struggling with menopause, food noise, and they're going through PCOS. They're going through some insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a big thing. And most of these women, before they come to me, are always getting ready to go on these Every one of them. Every one of them come to me and say, Mark, you know what? I've done everything. I've done every diet that you can think. Every single diet. I cannot lose the weight. And I'm okay. Hang on a second. What are you going to do next? And they're like, well, I was thinking about the injections. That's what I say to them. Like, listen, okay, enough. You need to sit with me, and I need to explain to you the reason. And what we do is before I actually sign these people up, we actually sit down for a 20 conversation. And these people ask me so many questions.
Yeah.
So many questions. And when I give them the answers they're looking for, they're like, wow, nobody ever told me that before.
Yeah.
Nobody. When I speak about leptin and ghrelin to people are like, what is that? And then when they understand what leptin is, they're like, well, what was the point in taking these GLP-1 injections then?
Fuck. That's a whole other animal, man.
You know what I mean? It's just like, wow, the reason why you're struggling with food has nothing to do with health. Nothing once off. It's down to the hormonal response to the food. That's what it's down to.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why so many people struggle.
Yeah. And it's funny how like what I usually try to explain to people too is like when you're thinking black and white, it's this or that. And when you're dealing with hormones, just because you have it or don't have it, how is it being made? How is it connecting? And if you're not like, it's amazing when I talk to people about like just 9 essential amino acids, what that is required to do in your body. And we always associate amino acids to muscles. And it's like, oh, there's so much more to this. And if you're not signaling your body correctly, why? You know, and it is all hormones. And whenever I talk to ladies and they're telling me like, oh, you know, I'm so lost and I'm, you know, hot, flashy, I can't sleep, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you have to take care of everything. You have to take care of everything. And if you address everything and not nitpick one or thing or the other, all of a sudden the body starts to come back into balance. That's the balance, not the balanced diet. The balance of your hormones being able to do their job. And it's nature, man, like naturally. Menopause didn't exist. It's a term we had to call it because women were freaking out and it was affecting people. Yeah. You know, look back. I talked to my mom and asked her about all her friends. My mom's 78 and they're like, not really. Nobody really talked about that. Like, obviously the stopping ovulation is a natural cycle that women go through. Fair enough. But this, I don't, you can call it an epidemic. It had to be labeled something. So now all these excuses are menopause. And it's like, if we just got back to Mother Nature and let your body just do its natural thing, all of this stuff doesn't have to be, right? And that's my opinion. And I know it's tough when two guys are talking about women's hormones, and I apologize. My whole life, I thought, you know, oh, women are crazy. They're hormonal. Holy shit. When you start understanding how hormones work and what they're responsible for doing, I'm so sorry. I am, but it all ties into the same kind of thing. Natural.
Yeah. No, honestly, I could honestly go on for another talking about this. We'll definitely have to do another one of these very, very soon.
Love it, man. Anytime, bro.
Definitely. So where can people go to find you, Tony?
Well, they can go to TonyStewartCoaching.com. That's my website. It's basically my animal-based coaching. I don't take a lot of clients. I try and keep it really, really tight, usually about maybe 4 clients a quarter. So I'm going to be probably taking a few clients in January. I'm also on YouTube at Food for Thought 1790. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And then obviously TikTok's sort of the new thing that I'm just trying to blast out little snips. And that's actually at Food for Thought as well. So that's me.
Well, honestly, keep plugging away because you're definitely making a difference.
Oh man, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you too, man. And I honestly, like, that's like my last comment to one of your videos. It's like we were separated at birth, bro, because I'm just right on your frequency for sure. And anytime, I'd love to have you on my thing and we'll do a YouTube thing. That would be great. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Unbelievable. Absolutely, Tony. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll definitely have to do one of these again in the future breakdowns.
All right. And people, I'm going to leave you with this message. Listen to this guy, please. Because you know what? It's not radical. It's just human. And I'm telling you, man, if you listen to this guy, you're gonna be better off. And man, I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tony. Appreciate the feedback. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Are you still there?
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.